All right, everyone, welcome back into another NBA DFS video. Going to be breaking down the Friday slate here. It's a 7-game slate. Let's go ahead and get into it. So guys, really for this first game, Atlanta versus Orlando, we really are not getting that many great plays to me on paper. Sure, Trae Young could have a good game. Banchero could have a good game. I will say the Magic players are all a little bit too cheap. Wendell Carter is the one that kind of sticks out to me the most. He is someone that ended up getting 30 minutes in the last game, and with those 30 minutes, ended up playing pretty well, came close to a triple-double, 8 rebounds, 9 points in that game. We do know that the Atlanta Hawks have kind of 3 bigs, Onyeka Okongwu, Porzingis, and then obviously Jalen Johnson. So that could lead to Wendell Carter getting those 30 minutes again. But it is worth calling out that he is projected to get 26 minutes, 10 points, 7 rebounds. So if he ends up getting those additional minutes, guys, 30 minutes, he ends up being a decent play. But overall, kind of the pricing is correct, I would say, for the Magic players. I wouldn't mind getting some exposure to Wagner, Banchero, or Desmond Bane. Just given the fact that one of those two could go off, it wouldn't be surprising. But overall, does seem like a spot where we're not necessarily getting to. And then for Atlanta, guys, really not much there for me. I could actually see getting to Luke Kennard, who ended up playing 30 minutes. He's only projected 15 here. So obviously you'd have to double that, but he didn't really hit that many baskets at all in that game anyways. So probably just to stay away. Now we go ahead and get into Boston versus New York, guys. Towns is currently questionable. I'm kind of expecting him to play. If he ends up sitting, that could actually help us with some of the Boston plays. Josh Hart currently questionable. We'll see if he ends up playing or not. He ended up sitting in the first game. And then OG, we are expecting him to play. OG got a bunch of shot attempts up in the first game. If that is something that continues and he's still at this price tag, he becomes a little bit appealing. I will say, kind of some strange minutes there. Jordan Clarkson ended up not playing all that much in that last game. I kind of thought he would be their number 2. I kind of thought he would have an outside chance of maybe 6th man of the year with the amount of minutes and shot attempts he would get up. With him not playing that many minutes, Tyler Kolek got a little bit of run. I don't think we really need to look at him. Miles McBride actually got the most minutes then for backup guards. He's in play at 4.1, but overall nothing too crazy there. For me, the Knicks are not really in play. And then also on the flip side of that, I do kind of like the pricing that we are getting here for Boston. So Jaylen Brown's in play to me. Derek White, Peyton Pritchard is also a decent play, but I like Queta kind of the most here, guys. Queta ended up getting a decent amount of run in that last game. And to me, if Towns does end up sitting, I like Queta a little bit more. So we see end up with 25 minutes. If he ends up getting that again, and he might even get more because they ended up following down that game, guys. 17 points, 8 rebounds. Love that there from him. He has been kind of a point per minute producer throughout the preseason, and that extended into the regular season. And even with Mitchell Robinson out, I do worry about the matchup a little bit less. And just worth calling out, guys, he only projected to get 21 minutes right now in the projections. If, again, we're kind of betting on that to be wrong. If it's closer to 30 minutes, then obviously it becomes a very good play. But even at 21 minutes, he is projected to get right around 19 DFS points. So almost a point per minute producer there, so I don't mind that. And then, yeah, DFS-wise, or like projections-wise, Brown and White are not necessarily going to pop as much as you would want. But overall, I do like them as plays at their price tags. They are definitely going to be the two that definitely get the most usage and shot attempts up. It's just whether or not they're hitting them. So firmly in play in GPPs. Then we go ahead here and get into Cleveland. So Darius Garland's out. Max Strus is out. DeAndre Hunter is someone that is questionable to play. He ended up sitting in the last game there, guys, as well, which led to Tyson Hunter getting a little bit more run. LaMelo Ball is actually a decent play. Sam Merrill got a little bit of run there as well. If Hunter ends up sitting, those 3 are all somewhat in play because we're not getting like elite value just yet today to the point where we might be forced into playing them. I will say I do really like Evan Mobley at this price tag. Again, if you look at the data for him with Darius Garland off the court and Max Strus off the court last year, he was the player that benefited the most, averaging over 50 fantasy points per 36 with them off the court. And we look at what he did in the first game, guys. Pretty darn good stuff. 36 minutes, 22 points, 8 rebounds, 3 assists. 3 steals, 1 block. I mean, just really good stuff there. And so he is someone that I am trying to go out of my way to get to. And so for me, when I'm looking at the projections for Evan Mobley, they are pretty darn solid, guys. He's projected to get 4.7x here, about 39 for his fantasy score. I'm just going to bump this up a little bit to like 42. That's kind of my way of telling the data I want to be on him more, and I might even bump him up a little bit more than that, but at least he's getting to 5x. Kind of telling the data that, yes, I want to go out of my way to target Evan Mobley, but let's just put him up to, I probably want to, because he's multiple position eligibility on DraftKings, I probably want to get to him about 30% of my builds. So to me, that ends up being a good spot for us. Now, again, Jared Allen is one of the players that actually project out really well in this game as well. And so that's a little bit of a concern to me, is that it could end up being one or the other. And that is what kind of tends to happen. We see he kind of struggled in the last game, guys. 4 points, 4 rebounds, did have 2 steals. So that's kind of my worry there. And I think there's safer bigs as well that we can get to. I'm assuming this is due to the matchup here with Brooklyn. And that being said, Nick Claxton is pretty cheap as well for a player that should get a lot of run because of Evan Mobley and Jared Allen being on the court. In the first game, guys, he only got 23 minutes in that game, 17 points, so 4 rebounds. So we like that there from him. But overall, Brooklyn really spread out all their minutes in game 1 to the point where I really don't think we can trust any of them for a while. And then let's go ahead and just take a peek at kind of how they're projected to play, guys. So MPJ, I don't mind. He should be a high volume shooter for this Brooklyn team. Projected to get 33 minutes. He's fine for GPPs. Don't need to go crazy with him. But like Ayer Demon and also Ben Sarif here, if we look at their minutes, they could both end up being a little bit too low. Demon was kind of a point per minute producer. He's priced at a cheap enough price where you could potentially consider him more as like a shoulder shrug play if you end up on him, sure. And then Ben here at 4.1, if he ends up getting like 17 or so minutes, then he is someone that we can consider for this slate as like a shoulder shrug value play. He ends up being a value play that isn't terrible. And now let's go ahead here and get on into Detroit versus Houston, guys. Interesting spot here. Jalen Duren played less minutes, only 20 minutes in the first game, due to, I think, the hamstring injury that was plaguing him throughout the preseason. Maybe they're going to limit his minutes for the start of the season. If that ends up happening, Isaiah Stewart, who ended up getting 20 points, 10 rebounds, over 25 minutes, if he ends up being the player that's going to get the most minutes among the bigs for Detroit, that becomes a very interesting spot, especially when you consider that it was just like Cade Cunningham and then really nobody else. And I don't mind punting then to a value if it ends up being that Isaiah Stewart's the number 2 there. That ends up being a great spot for us. I don't mind Cade Cunningham, guys, here. He ended up shooting the basketball 24 times in that first game, ended up getting a double-double there while playing 34 minutes. He did foul out in that game. You would imagine he would have probably got 3 or so more minutes in that game. You could easily give him a few more DFS points then. And if we look at right now, guys, point per minute wise, he is projected to be one of the better plays for Detroit as well. Projected to get 4.4x. Could easily end up getting the double-double bonus. And then Isaiah Stewart right now is projected to get 25 minutes. So for me, guys, he is someone that I do think we should be considering on the slate, especially if Houston's going to run out their big lineup again to the point where we might be forced to get Isaiah Stewart and Jalen Duren on the court together. So heck, we could even see Isaiah Stewart end up getting more minutes than what he's projected to get. Because remember, Houston started, and let's just pull him up here. Houston ended up starting Steven Adams. He played 22 minutes, or he played 37 minutes in that game, projected to get 22. You got Kevin Durant there. You got Sengun there. And then Jabari Smith Jr. also started as well. So that could force Isaiah Stewart into more minutes. And so I think kind of the industry projections could end up being pretty low on Isaiah Stewart here. And I'm kind of talking myself into him as a play here. I don't mind him. I will say Sengun is actually pretty darn interesting to me as a play at 9.4 on this slate. He should be able to go off in this matchup against Detroit. So I do like that. Clint Capella did not play that much. And I kind of mentioned for the opening night, I thought it would either be Clint Capella or Steven Adams. I still kind of see that. Obviously, it ended up being Steven Adams, but those minutes were surprising. And they are coming in off of a double OT game. Maybe Steven Adams gets less minutes in this game. And then Tari Eason, guys, projected at 27 minutes, projected to be one of the better values. Let's take a deeper peek at this one. The issue with him is he only played 22 minutes in that game and was, as DraftKings sums it up here, or RotoWire to be more accurate, he was a non-factor in that game. So that does worry me. I kind of think the projections out there in the industry might be a little bit wrong. That being said, the 9-to-5 projections are also based off of how Vegas sees the game going. And if he does get 13 points or so, 7 rebounds and 1.6 assists while getting 2 blocks and steals, that ends up being pretty intriguing there. So he's someone that I struggle with. I probably will not be getting to him as much as the data is going to suggest. Let's actually just update that here, guys. So Tari Eason, let's go ahead and just pull him up. I'm just going to cap him at about 15% max ownership just to ensure that I'm telling the data I don't need to be on him as much as really what it is suggesting we be on him at. I could also just bump his projection down, but I don't want to completely fade him. And then let's go ahead now and get into Miami versus Memphis, probably my favorite spot on the slate. If we're talking about core plays, I do see Norman Powell being a core play. So this is projected to be a pretty high scoring game and a close game as well, guys. So he ended up getting 19 shot attempts in that game. gained 28 points, 36 minutes, 9 rebounds, 4 assists. So basically, he did exactly what we saw him do for this team throughout the preseason. He does seem like he's going to be the number one option fantasy point-wise, maybe besides Bam. That could flip-flop. But in regards to what we have seen from Miami Heat, where it's been Jimmy Butler, in spots where it was Wiggins last year, kind of the small forward position, I think that's going to end up being Norman Powell, at least until Tyler Hero can potentially come back. So Norman Powell, to me, I am treating it as a core play. Now, I will say the data does not necessarily agree with me. And so I'm going to bump up his projections to at least 32 here, guys. Probably even more than that. So like 35, because I do think he's going to be a high usage rate player. I want to tell the data I want to be on him a decent amount, and even more so. Let's bump this up to 37. Just to tell it, yes, I want to be on him a decent amount, but we can also just bump up the min exposure. I want to be on him at least 20%, maybe even more than that. I'm going to be heavily overweight on the field, hopefully on Norman Powell. Now, from there, what was surprising to me minutes-wise is that Wiggins did not get that much run. We actually saw Hawkes get some run and be productive with that run that he got. So, he's fine, but really I think it's Norman Powell. You could get to Davion Mitchell, who was very productive in that opening game, guys. 16 points, 12 assists, 6 rebounds, very good stuff there. Ended up playing 35 minutes. And this ends up being a pretty good spot for him as well, I think. Only 15 shot attempts does slightly worry me, but he's at 6K. It doesn't take much for him to hit value. And if he's going to be in that role, I do like the spot then. And we still see that Davion Mitchell is projected to get 33 minutes, Norman Powell 33. I think those are both a little bit too low. Now, I don't mind the idea of saying if a lineup doesn't include Norman Powell, try to get to Andrew Wiggins instead. I think that ends up being an okay route to go. But overall, I do like Norman Powell more. And then, guys, let's go ahead and get into Memphis. So, again, Memphis is extremely banged up. It's crazy. Ja Morant is currently questionable. We are starting to get into back-to-back territory, so that's partially why he's questionable. Is if he could end up sitting. If he does, I think we're kind of actually looking at Jalen Wells to pick up a bunch of uses. Jaren Jackson becomes an interesting play as well. But it really becomes a toss-up. I'm sure Cam Spencer and Coward would become better plays as well on paper. But as it currently sits right now, I don't mind Jalen Wells as price tag. I think he ends up being a decent click for us. Jaren Jackson's fine, but if Ja Morant is active in this game, I think he actually ends up being one of the better plays on the slate. Price at only 8.9. What's appealing about him, guys, is when we look at his stats, we're going to see 20 shot attempts, which is obviously pretty darn good. And just with this squad, you would expect him to just continue to have this very high usage rate. Only 3 assists and 3 rebounds. Don't necessarily love that there from him, though. Memphis did spread out the minutes as well, which is not something I particularly love there, too. And worth calling out, guys, he is projected to get right around 40 DFS points, as well as Jaren Jackson Jr., so not terrible there. Jalen Wells, projected almost 4x, not great. Jock Landale there, guys, he's at 5x, which is not terrible, 20 minutes. He is kind of a point producer, but again, with how little, let me rephrase that, with the minutes being all spread out, it does make all the Memphis players, maybe besides Ja, in my opinion, okay plays, but not great plays. Maybe Ja sits and we can look at some other options though. Javon Small would obviously become a very good click then. Coward would become a better play as well. Then let's go ahead and jump on into the Spurs versus the Pelicans. So I'm sure everyone's going to try to get to Wembanyama here after a massive game in the first game, guys. 40 points, 21 shot attempts. I mean, that is really the big thing there. And obviously, he's going to be someone that gets a bunch of rebounds. This does seem like a pretty darn good matchup here as well. I don't mind the idea of stacking this. So if we're talking about who are the players I want to pay for the most, it's actually going to be Wemby and also Zion. And so, yeah, that's kind of the tough part about this slate. Is I do probably want to get to Zion, and I do probably want to get to Wemby as kind of the must plays on this slate. Now, obviously, if we're doing this, we don't necessarily have the salary left over, which I think is what's going to leave probably Mobley not as high owned as he should be. But if we're looking at a core, I would say take Isaiah Stewart out of this, and then I do like Powell, Mobley, Zion, and Wemby the most in regards to my favorite plays on the slate. And let's just take a peek at the projections here, guys. So yeah, Zion is projected to go for almost 50 DFS points here, guys. 33 minutes, so we like that there from him. Value-wise, Bay is a decent value, projected to get 32 minutes, so he ends up actually being one of the better plays on this slate. The concern that I would have with him is like, only projected 11.5 points, not that much there, but overall, like kind of who cares at 4.1 as long as we're getting heavy minutes. And if he can get us 10 points, that obviously ends up being great. We go ahead and take a peek at the Spurs, guys. Wemby is projected 5x. Obviously, that's great there. From there, Castle is kind of a shoulder shrug play. I don't think we necessarily need to get to anyone else after that. They are also spreading the minutes out a decent amount. And then we go ahead here and get into Washington versus Dallas, guys. I do actually kind of like CJ McCollum in the spot, coming in off of a poor night shooting in the first game. He went 0 for 6 from 3-ball range and still ended up being, like, I guess, okay, like 9 points, 4 for 14. Clearly just a terrible night shooting the basketball. If he's going to get 30 minutes, though, at this price tag, he is someone that I do think is going to consistently give us around 30 DFS points. Same thing with Middleton as well, who ended up shooting the basketball better compared to CJ McCollum there, 23 points. A little bit of a revenge game / homecoming game for him, so not surprising. But the issue is I don't think we can really project those two to get more than 30 minutes. So as you guys are seeing, this slate actually becomes pretty darn tight when you dial it down a little bit more in terms of players we can actually project to get a bunch of minutes that are also like cheap enough to play in lineups, okay? And so then we go ahead and take a peek at Dallas. Yeah, PJ Washington is popping up as one of the best values on the slate once again from opening night. He ended up playing 29 minutes, ended up getting 11 shot attempts, very efficient there, which obviously we like. I do really like the matchup here for Anthony Davis as well. So I kind of consider him a secondary core play. If you can't pay up for Wemby, then I do think Davis ends up being a very good play, especially against Washington. The question becomes, who should we be prioritizing? Is it AD? Is it Zion? Is it Wemby? Is it Evan Mobley? I do like Evan Mobley probably the most tonight. I'm going to be the most overweight on him. But Anthony Davis is also certainly in play, guys, at 9.8. I see him going for 50 DFS points in this game. And so this is the tough part about this slate. And so when I'm going through and like thinking about the lineups that I'm trying to build here, let's go ahead and just take a peek at those bigs that we are getting. So the small forwards and centers. So I'm going to sort of buy salary here. I want at least probably 25% of Wemby. I want at least 25% of Davis. Sengun, at least 15%. And then Zion, at least 20%. This is the tough part about this slate, is that we're basically going 4 bigs, I would say, 3 bigs at least. And then from there, it becomes much more difficult. So let's go ahead and see what the lineups are going to be presented to us. And we could even give some groups here. So I could say I want at least 3 of Wemby, Davis, Zion, Evan Mobley, because again, I really like Evan Mobley. Let's get into Norman Powell as well. I mentioned him being a great play as well. And so I want at least 3 of those players in all my builds. So we'll add that group and save it. And that's going to give us, I think, a good baseline. Those are kind of, again, the core plays that I'm looking at for this slate. So I do want to call an update I made, guys. So if you guys are a 9-to-5 member and you guys are using the 9-to-5 lineup builder, you click run. It's going to tell you the percent of lineups that is generated for you. Just kind of a thing that when you do 150 lineups, it does tend to take a while. At least you know the progress of it. So I did want to call it that update that I made. I'm hoping to get the logic and just the overall speed of the lineup builder faster as the season goes on without having to raise the price of the membership that much or having to make it like an add-on. Because right now it works. Like if you're generating 20 lineups, max it should take is 2 minutes. Chances are it's going to take 30 seconds. And so let's go ahead and just take a peek at the lineups to spin out to us. So the best lineup with those constraints that I had, and I don't necessarily like Clay or Jordan Clarkson, as I mentioned, but then, yeah, it's becomes difficult when we're doing that for sure. If Josh sits, small is not terrible. I don't mind Ball. PJ Washington's fine. And so you see the difficult part about getting to some of the top plays that we have on the slate. That is a definitely more difficult part about this slate. And so let's just go ahead and generate some lineups for you guys without any set rules. And maybe you like the lineups a little bit better. So we're getting to Donovan Mitchell, which, okay. Wemby, Larry Nance, PJ Washington. Seems like we're going to get to him a bunch. Castle, Bay. I think Bay ends up being a good play. And again, I don't necessarily like Jared Allen as much as the data is telling us to get to him, but you are seeing the tough part about this slate is we have a really high concentration of very good plays, and then with a lack of good values. Like to me, I think Lonzo Ball actually ends up being a decent value. If DeAndre Hunter's out for the Cavs, we're getting, Tyson, probably Sam Merrill as a decent click. I'm actually mad that the Bucks game and the Portland game is is not on the slate, because that would make the slate so much easier. We'd be looking at like AJ Green, Ryan Rollins, Cole Anthony has good guard plays there, so a little bit annoying, but that's going to do it for this video, guys. Appreciate you being here. If you guys would like access to any of the tools that you saw throughout this video, head on over to 9to5sports.com, get access to all those tools for a low monthly cost of $10 a month. Before you go, guys, leave a like, subscribe to the channel if you guys have not done so before. Appreciate you guys being here. Do gotta tell you guys a quick tilt for me from last night. I typically don't like to talk about my results too much, only when it's fun to share, and that's just because after a good day, I don't want people to get like too excited about like my advice or anything like that, and maybe do stuff that they typically wouldn't do bankroll wise. And also the exact opposite, when I have a bad day, I don't want people to be like, oh, this guy's an idiot. You know, I want it to be about the process. But anyways, last night I was in second or third place heading into OT at the second game. And then I fell off to about 10th place, which is obviously a very big difference in terms of the payout there. So pretty tilting there. Ended up being a fine night, but also very, very tilting there that game ended up going to OT the second game there. That's going to do it, guys. Thanks for watching. Good luck. And as always, let's keep cashing.